Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. My name's Lottie for those who are new here, and today I've got a bit of a different type of video. It's kind of a story time. I've never really done a video like this on my channel before, and this video is quite important to me. I wanted to film this video for a long time really, and basically, well, you'll probably already know from the title and thumbnail, but I actually did have scoliosis. I've had surgery now and it's all fixed. But when I was diagnosed with it, obviously the first thing I did was go to YouTube, like who wouldn't? So I just wanted to make a video sharing my experience, and hopefully it will help some people going through the same things that I did. Like if you're scared or worried, I just thought I'd share what happened to me and what I'm doing now. So if you haven't already, please do subscribe down below. And other than that, let's get into it. So in February 2015, I actually went on a trip down to London to see my auntie and my cousin with my mum, and when we were there we went shopping, and then when we got back, one of the things she bought me was this like navy and cream stripy like crop top, like this tight top. And then one day I was just walking around in the house wearing this new top not long after we got back, and she was like, come here, and she noticed basically I had like a hump on my back, but just on one side. It wasn't like a hunchback hump, it was just like my rib cage was slightly sticking out on one side of my back. And obviously my mum being my mum, she started to panic. So literally probably the next day we went to the doctors, and obviously doctors aren't specialists, so they couldn't really diagnose me. But the night before, my mum had done all the googling, probably the worst thing you can do, but she found out that she thought I had scoliosis. And when we got to the doctors, they said, yeah, they think it's scoliosis. What they also said was I'd need an x-ray on the NHS in just a normal hospital to confirm that it was scoliosis before I could be referred to a specialist. But the waiting time was ridiculous. So we were actually so fortunate, and my mum and dad paid for me to get an x-ray privately just so it could speed up the process. We went to a private hospital, got the x-ray, and that confirmed that. I think I actually have that x-ray, so I'll put the x-ray on the screen now. And originally the scoliosis wasn't too bad. I think it was about 30 degrees. So all of this was happening so quick. We'd literally just noticed it, been to the doctors, and then gone for an x-ray within a few days. And a few months earlier in 2014 in the summer, my sister Camilla had actually got married and I was one of the bridesmaids, and we were looking back at the pictures because I had a backless dress. We were looking back at the pictures like, it wasn't there. My back was fine there, it was completely normal. And then in the matter of 6 months or so, I'd just grown this bump, so it was just so strange, we couldn't get our heads around it. But anyway, we went back to the doctors with these x-rays, and the doctors looked at them and were like, okay, now we're gonna need to refer you to a specialist. And I was actually 15 at the time, so I was so grateful for that, because they gave me two options of two different hospitals. One was a normal adult hospital, I think it was called Oswestry, and one was Alderhay Children's Hospital in Liverpool. And the same specialist worked in both hospitals, so either way I would have got the same consultant probably working with me. But I just chose Alderhay because it's like a nicer environment, because it's child-based. So I got referred to the specialist, and when we first went to the appointment, Alderhay was actually moving from the old building to the new building that they're currently in. So it was like a bit of a nightmare. We didn't actually end up seeing the right doctor. They mixed up the dates on the letter and things like that. So that was a bit of a nightmare. But eventually, a few months later, we got to meet the consultant that would be looking after me while I had this scoliosis, and if I needed surgery, the consultant that would do the surgery. So it was all a really positive experience. My consultant was one of the nicest, if not the nicest person I've ever met in my life. He just could not do enough for me. There was literally nothing he wouldn't do for you to try and help you. And his name was actually Mr. Trivedi. I think that's how you pronounce it, I'm not sure. But he actually still works at Alder Hey. He's like the head consultant there, I think. I honestly couldn't have asked for a better consultant. So by the time I got to speak to him, the curve had actually developed quite significantly, and he suggested that I probably should have surgery, not only for physical reasons but also for cosmetic reasons, because I didn't like the way it looked. I had a huge rib hump. I couldn't wear certain clothes because they twist round. It was going to be the best thing for me and my mental health as well as my physical health. But before I could get the surgery, I had to wait until I stopped growing. So I kept going for 6-month checkups and getting x-rays. It was causing me quite a lot of problems at this point, and I started to get pain in my legs. I got a bit of tingling sometimes, so they ended up sending me for an MRI scan, but luckily there was no nerve damage, so that was good. It just caused me pain in my back, in one side of my back, and also pain in my left hip. So yeah, I remember in school as well the pain would be quite bad when I was obviously sat at a desk for a while doing schoolwork and things like that. So I carried on having these checkups, and then on the 16th of November 2016 I went for one of my routine checkups, an x-ray and a conversation with the consultant, and we basically asked if I'd stop growing and I could have my surgery soon, because in the summer of 2017 I was sitting my GCSEs and we wanted to try and get my surgery in the summer, because obviously after GCSEs you get a long summer, so I'd be able to recover and wouldn't have to miss any of my school. And by this point, I'll insert the x-ray here, you can see that the curvature was now at 56 degrees, so it just kept going and going, like it just was not going to stop. So he said, yeah, we can give you the surgery, it looks like you've stopped growing, and we scheduled it in for the beginning of July in 2017, so just after I finished my GCSEs and just after I had prom. So I was trying not to miss out on anything school related. And then I did my GCSEs, I had prom, and in my GCSEs I got a note from the doctor and the consultant to say in my exams I could have rest breaks, because as I said, I'd get bad back pains when I was like sat like this, like bent over a desk. So I could have rest breaks, so basically I could go walk around, stretch out my back and then come back to it. So that was really, really helpful. So if you do have scoliosis and you're taking exams, make sure you get that, because the pain can obviously put you off your work and you do not want that. So that was good that they gave me that as well. Everyone was trying to help me as much as possible, like everyone was just on my side. It was so lovely. I did my GCSEs, and then actually before prom I had my pre-op, and I have quite a lot of pictures from this pre-op. My dad came with me to this, and they just made me do like a few breathing tests. They took some blood, they put like a heart monitor on me and stuff, just to check that I was well enough for surgery. Obviously I got another x-ray, and they took pictures of my rib hump. So they made me like bend down like this, so that you could get the full extent of what it would look like. So I'm going to insert these pictures now, and now they're not very nice. I don't really like looking back at these pictures, but yeah, it is what it is. And as you can see in the one of me bent over, my rib hump is so extreme. And at this pre-op is when we realised like it was a little bit more, well, not complicated, but basically after these pictures got sent to my consultant, we did all the pre-op tests, and then we went to speak to the consultant, and he said you'd expect to see that hump on a curvature that was more like 70 or 80 degrees, I think he said, rather than nearer to 60. And basically what that meant was, so not only was my spine twisted like that, but it was actually twisted. So you know how your spine's straight, it was like twisted like a corkscrew. So that meant that my ribs were sticking out so much, it just looked absolutely terrible. Then he explained that in surgery, in order to get rid of the hump, because the main point of surgery for me personally was the cosmetic side, because it wasn't good for my mental health having this ginormous ridge hump. As I said, I couldn't wear certain clothes, blah blah blah. So he said he might have to break some of my ribs in order to make it flat because it was twisted. So that was a bit of a shock at the pre-op a few days before, but it was fine. And then after the pre-op I had prom. I had a great time at prom, and then 10 days after prom, I want to say, surgery day came, and surgery day was the 15th of July 2017. Obviously I did go in the night before, but scoliosis surgery takes hours, like 6+ hours, depending on how severe the surgery is. So obviously I was going to go down in the morning, so I went in the night before and stayed. And my mum stayed with me the night before, bless her. She was just so sweet. She stayed with me the whole time I was in hospital. Like, I honestly don't know what I would have done without her, but we'll get onto that. So she stayed with me the night before. I ate hospital food, and the food in Alder Hey, this is another reason why, if you ever have the option to have surgery here or an adult hospital, go to Alder Hey, because the food's actually really good. Like, I had a curry the night before and it was really nice, and my poor mum was really stressed. I wasn't. I actually slept like a log the night before the surgery, which was good, so I wasn't nervous at all. I think I wasn't nervous because although it was obviously quite a big, serious operation, I trusted the doctors, I trusted the nurses. Every single person I met in that hospital was just so positive and just lovely, so I trusted everything they were gonna do, basically. So I had no nerves in me. The next morning I woke up, they gave me some anxiety medicine, which basically just made me go to sleep. And then when I was in like the anaesthetic room, they woke me up to say bye to my mum, and I didn't really remember this because I was on like calming medicine, but apparently I was crying, and I was like, I remember saying, like, have you put the needle in yet? Have you put the needle in yet? Crying, even though they already had, so it was drama for no reason. But yeah, apparently I was just being really a bit dramatic when they woke me up. Classic Lottie. I didn't feel nervous. The only thing that made me nervous, like I just said, was the needles, but it was fine. So they put me to sleep, and then I think the surgery took about 6 hours. I mean, I don't know, I was asleep, wasn't I? But my mum definitely was not asleep. The poor woman, she was so stressed. She was on her own. There's a Costa in Alder Hey, and she just spent her time down there crying. Poor mum. But I was fast asleep. So after my surgery, they woke me up, and I remember before going into surgery, everyone told me the first thing they ask you to do is wiggle your toes, because obviously they've got to check for nerve damage. So I was really aware of that, even though I was out of it. Like, I was just wiggling my toes. I couldn't open my eyes barely because I was so like drugged up. And then I remember my mum and one of the doctors talking, and they were like, oh, I don't think she can hear us, she's asleep. And I was just like, I couldn't even be bothered to open my eyes, so I just lifted up my thumb, and then they just burst out laughing. But everything had gone well, everything had gone perfectly. They didn't have to break my ribs in the end, which obviously I'm grateful for, because that's just so much more pain and recovery. So everything went absolutely perfectly. I was so lucky. So then I got wheeled down to the ward, and again my mum was with me. My mum was with me every minute of it, apart from when I was in surgery. A few hours later I woke up, and my dad came like as soon as he finished work. He was in work, so he wasn't there in the day, but he came as soon as he finished work. He came the night before as well, but he didn't stay because he had work the next day, and obviously only one parent can stay in the hospital. So he went home because we don't live far away from Alder Hey, and then came back after my surgery a few hours later when I was more awake. And when I woke up, obviously I was lying down, but I just remember when the drugs had worn off a bit, I felt like a plank of wood, because there'd just been these metal rods like put in my back. I just felt like a plank of wood. It was just the strangest feeling. And I wasn't in pain at this point because I was still quite drugged up, which was nice. And I have so many pictures of me post-op that like my dad took and my mum took while I was asleep. So I'll insert them now. I literally look a mess. And then from then on, the next few days where I was in hospital were just the same. So obviously I was still on painkillers, but not as severe painkillers. I did have this button with this drug in it that I don't know what it was called, but every time I was in pain I'd press a button and like it would give me a dose of this painkiller. So every time the nurse, because obviously I couldn't move, every time the nurses would like roll me over, they'd tell me to press it before they did that and things like that. So every day was the same pretty much. I'd wake up for a few hours of the day, watch Gossip Girl on my laptop, go back to sleep. But one thing I've got to say is I can't say thank you enough to my mum, because while I was in hospital I was probably the most high maintenance person in the whole hospital. Like, all the nurses I feel so sorry for. All the nurses were the most loveliest people in the whole world. If I had a problem, if I felt a slight bit in pain, they'd do anything they could to get me medicine or move me or like wash me, like just anything they could they would do it, and they always had a smile on their face. They were just the most sweetest, kindest people in the whole world. Alder Hey is honestly, oh, it's just a miracle place. All my family pretty much came to visit. Everyone, apart from my dogs, came to visit. Everyone was just so lovely and sweet to me, which I'm obviously so grateful for, and I think it made the recovery process just a lot easier because everyone was there for me and like always trying to put a smile on my face. And the best thing about all this was definitely the food I was eating. You know, 3 meals a day in that hospital, and the food was incredible. I'd get pombas and sandwiches for lunch.
There we go, open wide, and in you go.
I could eat chicken nuggets for dinner. Oh, it was just so good. And they also had a Costa downstairs, so my mum used to always go and get me you know, like those smoothie type drinks, but they're not smoothies, because I was a diva. She used to go and get them for me. And then a few days passed and they wanted to actually get me to walk. Now, I hadn't sat up in a few days, so they made me sit on the edge of the bed. And it's actually not funny, but they made me stand up and walk. And as I said, when I woke up I felt like a plank of wood, but when I stood up I felt so much worse. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to walk normally again. And I also felt really sick because I've been lying down for so long and then sat up. I just felt really sick as well. But I felt like this, like I felt like I couldn't move my head, I just felt like I couldn't move because I was so stiff. It was just so weird, and I was being so dramatic. These nurses were holding me on each arm and I was screaming like, I can't do it, I can't do it. But it really wasn't that bad looking back. But I was just a massive drama queen. You're allowed to be dramatic after you've had spinal surgery, I think. Anyway, that's going to be my excuse. And then after that I went downstairs in the wheelchair. Like, my dad took me around to get like some fresh air because I hadn't been out in a while. So after I walked I could obviously move about a bit more, so he took me out. But when he took me around, we went around the ward and I saw a lot of the children there, and it just made me realise how lucky I am. And my surgery was so minor compared to the other children in there. I was just in the most lucky position. I still feel so grateful now. But yeah, so that was really an eye-opener being in that hospital, because I felt like I wasn't poorly at all. I felt like a bit of a fraud for being there, and there were all these really poorly children. So probably about the same day, maybe a day later, I had my first shower, which again was really dramatic. My mum obviously had to help me. I was like, I can't do it, I can't do it. I was just trying to wash my house and I was like like crying. I felt so sorry for her because she had to sleep on this little hard bed because obviously the beds aren't proper beds. She had a horrible time. While I was in hospital, there was this charity that came in and they work with Alder Hey quite a lot, and it was called the James Apter Foundation. I don't want to get this wrong, so let me just check. They're called the James Apter Friendship Fund, and what they did was they came round the hospital. They'd come in at different times. So while I was there, it was actually like so random because while I was there they came round my ward, but different months they go around different wards and give presents to the children in there. And like, we'd never heard of this before. They were just the most kindest, sweetest people in the whole world. And I'll insert a picture that they took of me and my mum now. I'll insert some more pictures from their pages as well, not just the one of me and my mum, but all these pictures are from when I was there. And they gave me an iTunes voucher. And they also had, so they had iTunes vouchers for the older children like me in there. They had like Minnie Mouse toys, you know, just anything for a child they had. They were giving out toys to all these children and all these babies, and I just remember feeling like such a fraud, because like there was nothing wrong with me. I wasn't even poorly, and like they were being so kind, giving me these presents, and there was like really poorly children in the hospital and I was getting presents. I just felt like such a fraud. Everything that happened to me while I was in hospital was just so enlightening. It just made me feel so lucky to be in the situation that I was in. Like, in the grand scheme of things, having scoliosis is not a problem. It's easily fixable. It causes you hardly any trouble. In this day and age, it's just not even a problem. And there was like just such poorly children in that. So anyway, I'm gonna leave the James Apter Friendship Fund link in the description down below. If you do want to donate, they do so much for the most poorliest children. Alder Hey and the James Apter Friendship Fund are two charities that are just really close to my heart, obviously. They just do such good work. Now finally, I was meant to be in the hospital for about 5 days. I think I ended up being in there only about 3 or 4, because one day they came in, they'd taken my x-rays, they checked my x-rays, and they just came in and said that you are free to go, basically. And they told us how to look after the scar, because obviously I have a scar going down my back now. This is what the scar looked like at the time and when it had just happened. So they discharged me early, which was good, but we got home and both my parents looked after me so well at home. And then in terms of my recovery, I had one checkup appointment 3 months after surgery. I'll show you the x-rays from that checkup appointment here. So as you can see in the x-rays, I've now got metal rods down my back with screws going through my spine bones. A lot of people always say as well, do you beep when you go through the metal detectors in the airport? But I actually don't, surprisingly. But yeah, that's what I look like now. I've literally got perfect posture, which obviously I'm grateful for. And then after that 3 months, I had another checkup with a consultant again. Same thing, x-rays, a little chat. And then that was it. I was discharged for good. The recovery to do everything was 12 months. But to get back to mainly your normal life, it was about 3 to 6 months, I want to say, to get back to doing most things. And in terms of now, I can pretty much move freely. I do have slightly restricted movements, like me and my mum were doing yoga in lockdown, and like some bends and like when you dip your back, obviously I can't do that. So yeah, there is slight restrictions to my movement, but all in all, like, I'm not a dancer, I'm not a gymnast, so it doesn't really affect me, which I'm lucky. Almost all the pain has gone. I do still get slight pains, but it's hardly any pain compared to before. It's hardly anything. And normally it's just when I'm sat for extremely long periods of time, like hunched over a desk, or if like I spend too much time in bed, really. So it's probably a good thing, because it just means I move about more. And I do have a tiny rib bump still, but it's pretty much unnoticeable for most people. But sometimes things like bras and crop tops do fit a bit funny because of it, but to the average person it's unnoticeable. And if that's all that's left from what it looked like before, then that is fine. I'd have that every day of the week over what I did have. So yeah, I'm very lucky. This is what the scar looks like now. It's literally the thinnest line going down the center of my back. Again, the surgeons did the most amazing job. It's now 3 years after surgery and my life is pretty much completely normal. There's nothing different about my life. You'd probably never know I even had scoliosis apart from my scar. That has been my scoliosis journey. I just wanted to say the staff, the surgical team, my consultant, the rest of the doctors that did my surgery. I am so grateful. I literally owe my life to these people, because without them I don't know how far my spine would have twisted. It could have ended up like crushing my lungs and my heart for all I know. So I literally owe my life to these people. I can't even tell you how grateful I am. Like, I cannot even explain to you. So I'm so grateful for Alder Hey Hospital itself, every single staff member that works there, every single surgeon, nurses, doctors, like volunteers, everyone in there's just got the most purest heart. But most of all, I just want to say thank you to my mum, my dad as well, but mainly my mum. Like I said all throughout the video, without my mum I wouldn't have been able to get through it. She was there holding my hand through every single part of the process. She was the one that found it, right till surgery. She was there for me, so I can't even say how grateful I am for my mum. Like, I just don't know what I'd do without her. So if you're watching, thanks mum. If you do have scoliosis, I hope you found this video helpful and insightful. And if you're considering getting surgery or not getting surgery, obviously from my perspective I'd say 100% go for the surgery for your mental and physical health. Obviously in surgery there can be complications, and I was lucky enough that I got through my surgery without any. It can obviously get progressively worse, and in the long term you don't want to have surgery later in life, because the later you leave it will probably become with more complications. I mean, I'm not a doctor, I'm just saying from my point of view and what I experienced, but the surgery has changed my life. I would not change ever having scoliosis or going through surgery or going through what I've gone through. I would not change it for the world, and I am absolutely grateful for the position I've been in, having the NHS and the doctors and the medical staff around me to change my life and save my life. So if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching another one of my videos. I know it was so long, but I just wanted to get through to you every single detail, because I know if I was in that position again, I always watch YouTube videos and I just want to know people's experience, like how they felt, were they in pain, what the x-rays are like, things like that. You just want to know everything when you're in that situation. So that's why it was so long, and thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, please hit the like button and also subscribe down below if you haven't already. And other than that, I will see you next week in next Sunday's video. Bye!